Alright guys, welcome back for another video on HAIKYU Fly High, and today I'm going to talk about something which is a bit hardcore, a bit sweaty, but I do feel like it's somewhat important, and that is it's very important to actually test or serigraph or simulate various different effects that you see in this game. So basically just don't take things at face value of how they appear, okay? Now I'm going to give two examples of this. The first one is completely factual. The second one I guess is a bit more subjective, but I kind of want to talk about it. So the first example I'm going to give is going to be about the new potential morale surge. Now, if you actually take a look at the description here, it says one spike increases your team morale by 5 points, so that's pretty straightforward. But then the second half, it says while your side is in team morale awakening, increase players' awareness by 10% and also strength by 20%. Now, obviously, you can see here it says players, plural, which kind of suggests it might be your whole team. However, I have actually tested this and no, it's not the case. It's only going to apply to whoever is equipping it, okay? So you could just say this is just a translation error, it's a typo. To be honest, I did check the original Chinese text, it's somewhat ambiguous there as well. But it's just kind of one classic example where, don't just read things and take at face value. It's normally going to be a good idea to actually test it out to see whether or not it's actually true. I will share the clip for how to test this at the end of this video. I will timestamp it if you do want to compare the numbers where I have equipped morale surge on someone on my team, so not the one spiking but someone else on my team, versus the numbers I get when I don't have it equipped. And you guys can see the numbers, they are exactly identical, which basically means this doesn't work unless it's on the person equipping it, okay? So that's going to be the first example, which is completely factual, right? So there's no ambiguity here. Second example is going to be a bit more subjective, but I done the numbers. I don't know how many other people done the numbers, and that's going to be the spiking power of SP Ushijima. So basically, I created a tier list at the start of this month where I have only rated SP Ushijima at 8 tier. And one of the comments I said is that basically there's no need for basically the main role in my opinion for SP Ushijima is the fact that he can spam things, which no other character is able to do. However, in my video I did say that I don't actually think it's that important, because a lot of time especially with SP Ushijima, if you want to do a power specialty, you will be playing other power spike at the same time, and what's the point of spamming an attack when you have other people who are capable of spamming capable of spiking as well, okay? Now, I have saw some people comment in the main Discord group saying that, that's a stupid reason, etc. Obviously, tier list is completely subjective. So, if you think that's stupid, that's absolutely fine. But the reason why I'm bringing it out as an example here is just that I don't actually know how many people actually run the numbers for SP Ushijima before concluding he is the best spiker in this game. Because I can tell you, if I just pick one simple comparison, SP Ushijima versus Sakusa, I can tell you SP Ushijima has lower raw power spiking stats than Sakusa. He has lower spiking ultimate multiplier than Sakusa. He has lower self buff to power spike than Sakusa at the highest buff stack. He also have lower self crit damage buff than Sakusa at the highest buff available, okay, at the highest number of stacks available. Now, of course, it's not going to be guaranteed that Sakusa can always reach those max stacks, but it's the same argument for SP Ushijima as well, okay? So just one simple example, I don't know how many people actually done the comparison for the numbers before concluding or thinking that SP Ushijima is the best spiker in this game. The reality is it's not. When you have other people who are capable of spiking even harder than SP Ushijima, then what's the point of SP Ushijima taking every single spike, okay? Now, of course, there are situations where SP Ushijima is going to be very, very good. Club contests are going to be one very good example for that, where SP Ushijima is going to outshine every single other character, but that's just one example of it. There's also some people on my Discord group who actually created a guide for SP Ushijima teams, which I will also highly recommend. So this is on my Discord group under the resources channel. So obviously kudos and shout out to Fire and also Joao for actually creating this. They created very detailed like rotation example, etc., just so to get the most out of SP Ushijima. And I'm sure that considering how much details they have done, this is probably the most optimal for SP Ushijima and can get the most out of it to make him hit harder than other spikers. But for an average player in an average team, unless you go through the same kind of thinking, it's very likely that your SP Ushijima is actually no better off than just the traditional way of playing multiple spikers. So once again, it's just something for you guys to bear in mind before jumping to conclusion. Sometimes if you actually run the numbers yourself, you may actually find out something which is very different to how the kit may initially appear as, okay? I'm going to give another final example for this on why SP Ushijima is so good in club contests, even though when I say other spikers can hit harder. The reason why SP Ushijima is so good in club contests compared to everyone else is that because he can actually spam, that basically free up at least 2 other slots on your team for you to put on, let's say, a dedicated buffer to make sure SP Ushijima can even hit harder. Now, this is not always going to be the case in PvP, however, because in club contests, vast majority of the time, you're not going to lose a point. You don't need to worry about rotation. You don't have to put your best blockers. You don't have to put your best receivers even. However, in actual PvP, you need to consider all of the things such as rotation. You also need to have good blockers. You also have to have good receivers. So even though SP Ushijima may still free up 2 other slots on your team, who can you actually put into those 2 slots? And does that actually justify using, let's say, SP Ushijima plus 2 other player versus, let's just say, 3 different traditional spikers who can all hit just as hard or even harder than SP Ushijima, okay? So once again, that's down to team building. However, once again, I'm just trying to point out some things you can't really take at face value, okay? You need to put a lot more thinking into them, maybe run the numbers, maybe run the simulations, and actually validate whether or not the kit is as good as how it appears. Okay, now let me show you guys the testing I've done just to validate that the new morale surge potential set doesn't actually apply unless it's on the equipper, okay? So I'm just going to show you my team first of all, just to show you guys all of the morale, of the potential set, to show you guys I don't have the new morale set here, okay? Now, the way I'm going to do it is I will just literally go into the match and try to spike on Iwazuyumi, doing Team Morale Awakening, and just compare the numbers without any morale surge potential. And then I'm going to change up the potential set on my characters to actually have one set equipped on someone else, and then run the numbers again, okay? Now, one thing that I am needing to do on the very first rally is that you'll see me quickly go into substitution, and I'm going to swap out my Nishinoya for a different liberal. The reason why I'm doing that is that, first of all, I wanted Nishinoya on my team just because I want to get to team morale quicker. However, Nishinoya does have a passive ability which actually make my power spike stronger, and I want to remove that inconsistency in case I don't always get that received before my spike. So that's kind of why I want to make sure my Nishinoya gets subbed out before the actual testing happens, but I still wanted him in the team at the start of the match to give that extra morale boost just so that I can make my testing quicker. Now you can see my team morale is full, so this is going to be the first number that you will see, which is the one without any morale potential set, okay? So let's see the numbers. So here you can see it's 47.8k, okay? So that is basically the numbers without morale surge potential set on any of my players. Now what you'll see me do is I'll quickly go to my Yamamoto's potential set, and then I am gonna put 4-piece morale surge on him, okay? And you can see this effect. It says, it's very ambiguous because it says plural, players in the plural form. However, that's not actually true because now I'm going to do the testing. So once again, the exact same match. You can see I have morale surge potential set here. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Swap out Nishinoya for a different liberal. And then repeat. Team morale awakening is full now. Now I'm going to activate it. And then you can see the number here. So remember, I think it was 47.8k before? Yeah, and it's 47.8k again here. So just take a look. 47.8k here, okay? And I'll just quickly go back to the first one without team morale, 47.8k, okay? So once again, check. 47.8k, okay? So the two numbers are exactly the same. whether or not I have my Yamamoto with the new team morale set, potential set, okay? And that basically just validates this only works if it's just the person equipping it doing the spike. It doesn't work passively.